Welcome to the Manufacturing Shakeup. We're your hosts, Ellen Feldman-Ornato
and Jenny Drescher. We're talking with dynamic women from across the manufacturing scene in Connecticut.
Hello and welcome to the Manufacturing Shakeup. Today we have with us Robin Ritz from InCord Custom Netting Solutions. Hi, Robin.
Hi, ladies.
It's so good to see you again. We are big fans of what InCord does for so many reasons. We've met your whole team. We did some fun retreat stuff a couple of years ago, pre-pandemic actually, wasn't it? Wow, it's been a minute.
Yeah, it has been a minute for sure. So Robin, as we get started, InCord does a lot of really cool things like custom netting solutions. Give us an idea of the places people would find your products.
So we are, in all the water parks. So Great Wolf Lodges, Six Flags. You're going to find us at different indoor soccer stadiums, aerial adventure courses, zip lines. You'll find us in theaters for orchestra pit nets and Jiffy Lubes or oil changing stations with our bay nets. We're big into workplace safety, so fall protection nets on active work zones or lifting and rigging solutions in those construction sites as well.
So basically, in other words, if I'm driving around Connecticut and I see a net, it's probably yours.
I hope so.
Yeah, we do too.
Like, what are some specific examples? This was something that I actually thought was very groovy when we first met you. What are some specific examples? Like when you
in Connecticut?
Yeah,
in Connecticut. So we got Connecticut Science Center. So they've got barrier nets and interactive nets with some of their exhibits there in Hartford. Out in Mystic, the Mystic Marine Life Aquarium, we're a really good solutions provider and innovator with them for marine life safety behind the scenes and within their medical efforts and things like that, fish incubation cubes and things like that. In Connecticut, also down in Mystic, Fields of Fire, so aerial adventure courses, paintball courses. Nomads up in Windsor has got an aerial adventure course that'll have all of our equipment in it. Supercharged down in Montville, so that's like an indoor trampoline.
If I'm on an aerial course and I fall, your net's gonna catch me?
Probably not. No, there's probably not netting around it. You should be belayed off. But ideally, yeah, if there was a net to fall into, it should be ours. But the climbing nets, so yeah, there's a lot of different places, even just in Connecticut, that you could find our work. Bushnell.
The reason I ask
at the Bushnell in Hartford, there's a theater orchestra pit net in the Bushnell. So yeah, we've got pretty good coverage in Connecticut.
Yeah, coverage. Ha 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 ha. Net coverage. That's just right there. The reason I'm asking is because what delighted us when we met you was just how many places you are, and we're obsessed with how stuff gets made here at the Shakeup. And so it's fun for our audience. Hey, audience, meeting Robin. Hope you like to hear all about the nets. It's just very cool to drive around and be able to recognize exactly where that thing came from. Right? Exactly. Like, oh, I know I heard that lady talking about that product on that podcast.
So Robin, just before we started, we were talking about how you get to career goals and aspirations. Did you think you were going to be an HR director inside of a manufacturing facility when you were envisioning your future years ago?
No, I didn't even know what HR meant. I didn't know what human resources meant. My first job in human resources was in my late 20s, and it was because I spoke Spanish, and I did not even know what the word meant. I had no concept of what that entailed. So I've come up through HR and management, and now to be creative visionary. I didn't aspire to it. I never thought, oh, that's what I'm going to do. But here I am, and I love what I do, and I do what I love. So yeah.
And you're in a unique partnership with your sister there, right? Tell us
Yes.
a little bit about the leadership structure inside of your company and how that evolved.
So yeah, I'm gifted with the privilege of working together with my sister, Meredith Shea. She is a phenomenal leader. She is our CEO. So the way that we work together, I'm creative visionary. She is CEO. There's a book called Rocket Fuel that describes that relationship really, really well, where you have an innovator and then you have the integrator. So I come up with the lofty ideas. She sets the priority, the strategy, and decides which ones we're doing, when we're doing them, how to communicate that. And so really she runs the show and does a phenomenal job with building our teams and helping everybody understand what our direction is. And then she and I work on the long-term strategy and understanding what else are we bringing in, what else are we dreaming in. But it is very well defined in how we do what we do in an efficient, effective way.
You know, the thing you're describing strikes me as really important because as you were talking, the image that conjured for me was like a picture of creativity and a heart. Right. So like what you're talking about is the end of the innovation, right? The creativity, the heart, the dream. The language you chose was not language we typically hear in manufacturing, right? It's atypical to talk that way, but that's part of what has caused success for you and for the company. This pairing of heart and, tactical execution has clearly been like the magic formula. Can you share some examples of that for our audience to understand the importance of this?
Of how love works in the workplace and why dreams are important.
That's a great start.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we are a manufacturer and we do operate in the corporate structure of things. So we're providing a tangible product that has to be of the highest quality, that has to have the utmost integrity, because ultimately it's saving a life or a young life is playing on it. So that is paramount in our focus of safety, understanding our connection to the higher powers, if you will. Where is our place in the world providing safety? So we're able to connect into that. And then understanding that InCord is driven by the success of our distributors. So externally, our success ranking comes from how successful can we help them be in servicing their client needs. And then internally, knowing what the goals are of our employees, knowing what their dreams are, is equally valuable in investing in what is it that's going to motivate them? What is it that's going to help them feel successful? And so likewise, that's another metric of our success is how successful do our employees feel? So all of that does go into manufacturing a product that has integrity. It builds on to your longevity. It increases your motivation. It builds a synergy around the product that you're trying to make that transcends just the materials that are being used to make it. So looking at that as a really holistic vision, yes, we will be profitable doing this. No, we will not forsake the American dream of profitability, but we're not doing it at the expense of people on their backs. We're saying we're helping you rise and lift up in a way that creates more momentum and success for all of us. And it can apply to manufacturing. It can apply to a service-related industry. It can apply to absolutely anything. But when you start to take it to those levels on behalf of who you're in service to, then it really takes on more meaningful energy because you've got this synergistic cyclone that you start creating on behalf of other people. And it's not just give me, give me, give me, give me, which is not sustainable.
Right. So I have a question because one of the things that I remember when we talked to you a couple of years ago was that you've made significant investments at InCord into helping people who don't speak English as their first language develop English language skills and also help people within your facility learn how to speak Spanish so that they can be more effective communicating with your workforce. Can you talk a little bit more about just what's the philosophy around that kind of developmental work for the people on your team?
Sure. Well, I think understanding communication is king. And the basics of communication is we have to be communicating in a common language. And so the basics of communication say, if I'm not speaking the same language as another individual, how could I possibly be understood? And so knowing that fundamental, knowing that we are in an English-speaking dominated workplace, but not every single person has that as their native or dominant language. And it is a common ambition of non-native speakers to want to have that language acquisition, right? So understanding that, we partnered with a local education resource that created a program that would be for non-native speakers to learn English as a second language. And then we also developed Spanish-speaking programs for our supervisors so that there was a balance in the learning exchange that was there. So we have English speaking supervisors or participants that want to start to learn a common language of somebody else, and then equally non-native English speakers that had the opportunity to learn English as a second language. And some of it is for workplace fluency, but some of it is so they can advocate for their children. Some of it is so that they can speak up on behalf of their kid at school or at the doctor's office and they don't know how. So it's this level of empowering and giving a resource to somebody to help them feel more able. And so, yes, some of it translates back to workplace communication, but some of it actually is helping address needs outside of the workplace, but that become a distraction for that individual when it's all consuming or they feel helpless.
Mm-hmm. That's the next level to me of really having a company that's deeply engaged in the community, right? Because there's so many different ways that that an organization can be intersecting with community, but helping a person who is, sort of trying to craft that American dream and cross those barriers, right? Making that more possible, being in partnership at all the levels you just described strikes me as a really next level of making that happen.
I do hope it becomes the norm. We do vision boards. I personally do vision boards with every single one of our employees to help them understand that it's important to me that they know that they have time to think about their dreams, that somebody's saying, I care about what you care about, and it could be anything. And reinstilling or maybe even introducing the idea to some people that you can have anything you want. Just ask for it. Just put it on the board. Put it on the board. And that investment back in human development, back in understanding that there's a soul nourishing component that we can't live without, and providing people that opportunity to be people with dreams and be people with inspirations and be people with aspirations. And most of it's for their family or their next generation or their spouse. I mean, when you ask people what they want, most of the time it's something for somebody else, right? And it's even just empowering them to start asking for things for themselves. And how does this translate back to the manufacturing sector? You're asking, well, law of reciprocity. When I do something nice for you, you do something nice for me. When I tell you I'm invested in your dreams, you say, well, what's your dream? How do I invest in that? And I say, I want to run a really successful netting company. You say, I want to help you do that. And it's that simple, that I help you, you help me. And I can't know what you need help with unless I just blatantly ask you, what's your goals? What are your goals? What are your dreams? And oftentimes, I think, especially those of us that have reached a place of either affluence or realized a lot of our dreams, we lose touch with how simple some people's goals and ambitions really are and how quickly we can help them manifest them in a meaningful way. And so I think, it's not, again, coming back to Kaizen, sometimes it's a $5 or less opportunity to help somebody get what they want. It's not always some big, expensive thing. coming back to the English questions. Sometimes it's just, I wish I knew better English. I wish I felt more confident communicating. And so those are things that it's a lifelong gift that you give somebody and they give it back.
Yeah. I have a question for you because I want you to just share. I know you had a very recent accomplishment that you're super proud of. Could you share that with our audience? Because I think a lot of people aspire to do the kind of thing that you just did. And it's like the number one fear that people have. So go for it.
So I think I know you're referring to, I recently was invited to speak at Encuentro Latino America in Medellin, Colombia. I spoke on behalf of InCord on the topic of leadership, and I did it for the IAPA Latin America Association, which is an amusement and attraction association. So it was a professional goal of mine to be invited in a speaking capacity to speak about management. It was a personal and professional goal to be able to do it in a Spanish-speaking community, to do the presentation entirely in Spanish in front of about 700 attendees in Medellin. Thank you. It was big. It was a long time in the making, probably 2016, 2017, 2018, thinking, yes, this is where I want to be. 2019, working on developing some credibility in that sector, and then having about at least 2 years where it just plain wasn't possible. So it was thank you for bringing it up. It's a big accomplishment, and I am really proud of it. It was absolutely nerve-wracking when I was in the very beginning of it, only because there was a big Jumbotron image of me next to myself, which freaked me out.
So daunting, right?
That
First
part.
time you see your head that big on a screen, it's a completely, I will never forget that experience. No. If I live to be 1,000 years old, the first time I sort of looked right and looked left, keynoting a conference,
there
it was
we
like,
are.
Oh my God, I'm so gigantic. That was
the hardest part. That was the hardest part. But I would, it definitely like a big moment to celebrate for myself professionally and personally, to be able to get up. And it's something that my sister and my father and I used to talk about as far as the evolution of InCord, and how do we share the story? How do you share the creative management ideas? And how do you explain the model that we've created to other people in a meaningful way, and saying, you can put people before profits and still be profitable. You can put you can focus on reinvesting back in your people and have it reap dividends far more than just putting it on their backs. And so it was a big deal, kind of in a long time in the making. And it was something that, anybody that is looking to get into, whether it's those public speaking sectors or putting yourself out there in another language, you just got to keep showing up for yourself. And you take the opportunities at a volunteer level is how you start. You say, I'll do it for free. I'll do it for free. I'll do it for free. And then eventually I got an all expense paid trip to Colombia to speak on leadership. And big deal. So thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about how you might bring those lessons to other small manufacturers in Connecticut. So how many people actually work at InCord?
I think we're at 113 today.
Okay. So you're sort of right in that sweet spot with a lot of other Connecticut manufacturers, right? So our friends out in the audience, let's make note about that, this is a very different perspective that InCord is taking to cause success in not just keeping up with the big companies, which is not necessarily the goal, but really carving out the space for what's going to work for us here now in this place and this time in this small but mighty state, as we like to call it here on the Shakeup. And you're very much a reflection of loads of other companies your size that are wanting to do that. So I love the inspiration of how you've done what you've done, marrying heart and head and practices at work. When can we get you to start talking about this in other places across Connecticut? Because I think that story needs to be told.
Yeah, I'm open for it. I'm available. Yeah. Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.
So you heard it here, friends. Grab Robin, get her to come in and talk about these amazing practices. You will be glad you did.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe we can do a couple podcasts in Espanol for the audience out there that would appreciate it in Spanish.
Yeah, por supuesto.
Okay.
So I'm gonna pull a couple threads through because we're winding down the podcast today. One was Rocket Fuel, the book. Like sounds like that's been a really influencing high influence one. I also have like marrying creativity and innovation and heart with integration and execution. Like not being afraid that those things don't match, but in fact leaning into the idea that they match 10,000 times more than most of us are trained to think that they do, right? Like, yeah, do the dreaming part, right? Let that be your guide. Another shake-up factor I'm hearing is really being tied into the client's dreams. Like, what are your clients' dreams? And being willing to be a servant to somebody else's dreams, knowing that doing that will help you fulfill your dreams, right? Whether that's a client or an employee, that exchange, that mutual exchange of together we make dreams happen. It's, none of us are doing this alone. This is not a solo dance. And then the third shake-up factor I'm hearing is communication is queen. Absolutely, communication is queen.
Yes.
Or empress.
Yes, I like empress. I love empress.
Communication is empress.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So,
and it has to be in a common language. That's one of the three factors. Like you got to find the common language. So
yeah. And one other thing that you said when we were talking before we started rolling was this whole concept of like, be really proud that you speak a language other than English, right? That it's a huge accomplishment to come from another country and learn one of the most difficult languages in the world, right? So that's a source of pride. And very often we hear people say, I don't speak English very well. It's like, you speak English. And it's not your native language. That's an enormous accomplishment. Let's elevate the status of people who speak more than one language within our workplaces because they're an asset to Connecticut and forward, right? The world is just becoming more multinational. So why not embrace that?
Yeah. And we had talked about Spanish is going to be the majority language in the United States in a very, very couple of years. That's it. So yes, be proud of that. Be proud of the culture that brought you here. And it is an asset. It is something to be proud of and leveraged and get paid for. It is something that is a valuable asset when you can translate from one language to another or be able to communicate in multiple languages. And you can't emphasize that enough, is that reinstilling that pride in the duolingual or in the multi-language. And accents are beautiful. Accents are beautiful. And
don't get me started on accents. You will regret that choice all day.
We
It's
do
bad
very
idea
silly
for me to
accents here
start
on the shake-up. We do, indeed.
Right, on that note, we're going to see that it's time to end this particular episode.
Robin, it's
Robin
been a
Ritz of
delight.
InCord, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your story. Hope that everybody out there that is listening will go act upon their hearts and speak all the languages.
yes. Thank you, ladies. It was a pleasure.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Manufacturing Shakeup. You can listen to us each week on your favorite podcast app. You'll find us on LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram. And if you use the hashtag MFG Shakeup, we will see them and really appreciate your spreading the word about what you're hearing and learning each week. Hey, Jenny, did I forget anything?
Yes, you did. Here's the most important bit. You may have learned something from that guest. They may have told a story about, here's what I did and here's how it worked. Here at the Manufacturing Shakeup, we are all about action. So take some nugget of what you heard today and put it into practice, even if it's small and experimental. Get busy, get dangerous, go shake stuff up and bring people along with you. Go take an action, post it on social media. Let's have some fun.
The Manufacturing Shakeup is sponsored by the Connecticut Office of Manufacturing, produced by Maselli Productions and Gale Communications, and hosted by the Boulder Company.